Greetings. My name is Steve Bartha, Lexington Town Manager, and it's a privilege to provide my first budget presentation to the Lexington Town Meeting. Since arriving in November, people have heard me say, more than a few times, the expression that we can do anything, but we can't do everything. I've even had it repeated back to me now on several occasions. I picked up this expression in 2017 while participating in the Senior Executive Institute at the University of Virginia. It came from Craig Gerhardt, a grizzled former county executive in Prince William County, just south of D.C. on the Potomac. I love it because the blend of optimism, we can do anything, and pragmatism, we can't do everything, aligns well with my own belief system and approach to local government management. Budgets are the most important policy document that local governments publish, because how a community chooses to allocate its limited resources is a reflection of what that community prioritizes. In Lexington, like in most local governments, the vast majority of what we spend each dollar on is the people who provide the services we all enjoy. We are in the people business. As you can see, almost 80 cents of every dollar we spend on the operating side supports town and school employees. Salaries, health insurance, overtime, retirement, etc. This was true in the community I came from and in most communities. The remaining 20 cents pay for things like utilities, insurance, small equipment, materials, supplies, and the like. The takeaway is that when we talk about the budget, we're really talking about people. Like almost every community in the Commonwealth, Lexington is limited in its ability to diversify revenue. We rely heavily on property tax to fund operations. It constitutes 79% of our operating revenue. This is not universally true. In Colorado, for example, municipalities are far more reliant on sales tax or tourism revenue to fund operations. In North Dakota, extraction tax on crude oil makes up a large portion of local revenue. There are obviously pros and cons depending on the source. Property tax is far more stable than some of these other revenues, but as the Select Board discussed at a recent meeting during a conversation on how to enhance and expand senior tax relief, there's often a misalignment between a home's value and the occupant's ability to pay. The takeaway here is that our revenue sources have remained very stable over the past decade, with the largest shift being from local receipts to state aid as a percent of the total. On the expenditure side, a similar theme emerges, due mostly to the long-standing revenue allocation model in Lexington, which seeks to equitably distribute new revenue across three expense columns: school, municipal, and shared. As you can see, while the total dollars have increased over time, the proportional distribution has remained largely constant. Spending has shifted slightly over the past decade from shared services and municipal departments to the school department, driven largely by mid-year adjustments to headcount based on student population and student need. Here you can see the revenue allocation model broken out by category. As has been the case for many years, we first identify shared cost increases, such as health insurance, pension, debt service, and facilities and set-asides, for things like cash capital, SPED reserve funding, OPEB, and transfers to the Construction Stabilization Fund. The remaining new revenue is then allocated 74% to the school department and 26% to municipal departments. Like the revenue and expenditure charts, a similar story emerges when comparing the FY26 municipal budget to the FY16 budget. DPW, library, police, and general government are up, land use and human services are down, others have largely remained flat. This chart shows a roll-up of the departmental budget increases or decreases from the prior year. Note that the decrease in the town manager budget is distorted by a $120,000 appropriation at the fall town meeting to fund a public safety staffing study, which means the year-over-year change, net of this one-time adjustment, is actually a $65,000 increase. The salary adjustment account is a non-lapsing account, and the reduced appropriation simply means there is adequate fund balance for current collective bargaining processes. Most of the drivers on this slide are familiar to town meeting members. Health insurance costs continue to snap back to and even beyond pre-pandemic trendline. Unfunded pension liability is on track to be fully funded in 2030. Like many communities, Lexington saw considerable increases in solid waste and refuse collection during its most recent procurement process, and the Solid Waste Task Force has been working hard to explore ways to reduce the impact of these rising costs over time on residents and the budget. A number of contracts saw significant cost increases this year, including townwide compost, which had been previously funded through ARPA, Lexpress, which was rebid this year, and Lex Media, which continues to see declining revenue due to decreased cable subscribers. We are also implementing a comp and class study to ensure that our employees are fairly paid, and we are preparing to bargain with 5 unions this spring. To put the program improvement slide in context, the total new revenue for municipal departments through the allocation model was $1.9 million, and the total general fund request for program improvements this year totaled $2.06 million. Of the $244,000 funded, only $20,000 for solar inspections and maintenance is included in the operating budget as a new operating cost. The hazard tree removal in response to a town-wide survey and the solar assessment funding are both funded from free cash. This slide shows how capital financing has changed over the past decade. These charts reflect a concerted effort in recent years to reduce the town's reliance on debt service for ongoing capital programs like heavy fleet, paving, sidewalks, school IT, and other infrastructure. This allows the town to reserve debt service capacity for large one-time expenditures, such as the recently completed police station or upcoming high school project. This next slide summarizes capital expenditures by category and source. A strong free cash certification this year allowed for $21 million in capital requests to be funded through that source. But consistent with the effort to reduce debt financing referenced on the last slide, a number of projects were deferred this year after consultation with the requesting departments. The number that jumps off this slide, obviously, is the high school project. The $654 million placeholder in the budget remains an estimate, as project costs will be refined this summer now that the Bloom design has been invited into the MSBA schematic design module. This figure does not reflect the roughly $100 million in MSBA funds earmarked for the Lexington project. A debt exclusion vote on the project is anticipated for the fall. This final slide provides a snapshot of recommended appropriations into the town's various reserve funds, as well as the current fund balances prior to these appropriations being made. As noted on a previous slide, the town of Lexington enjoys the highest possible bond rating, and these reserve funds, along with clear financial policies, sustained, steady leadership from our financial committees and select board, and some of the best municipal finance staff in the Commonwealth, are a big reason why that is true. So on that note, I'd like to close by thanking Assistant Town Manager for Finance, Carolyn Kozanoff, Budget Director, Rosalind Impink, and Deputy Town Manager, Kelly Axtell, along with too many others to name, for their time, patience, and answers to my many questions over the past few months as I learned and we navigated the budget process. See you all at town meeting.